Back in 1996, we saw the formation of the Big 12 Football Conference. One of the founding members of that conference was the Baylor Bears, but the founding members like Texas and Oklahoma would go on to dominate that conference, whereas the Baylor Bears would become the punching bag of that very conference for over a decade. This team from 1996 until 2009 had 0 winning seasons. They went 3 years straight without winning a single game in the conference. In their first 14 years in the Big 12, they won 14 conference games. They were routinely the punching bag, the team that was at the very bottom every single season. It wasn't until RG3 came along that this team had its first winning season in the Big 12, its first bowl victory, its first winning record in the conference, and a stunning upset win over Oklahoma that really cemented Robert Griffin's Heisman Trophy winning season and put Baylor on the map once and for all to set this team up for success that it had not seen ever in its program's history. Suddenly, the basement dwellers were on top, and with 3 straight double-digit winning seasons and bowl victories, brink of playoff appearances, Baylor was a bit of a destination to go to if you wanted to be a part of a high-scoring offense, and with teams in the 2010s like Texas falling behind, Baylor took over, and for a couple of years, they were legitimately in the college spotlight for the first time ever. But maybe the success was too good to be true, because one Art Briles scandal later, an exodus of the head coach and some of its players, and right back down they went. 7 wins, and then bottomed out with a 1-11 season, only to be saved by Matt Rule, where they had one magical season of greatness, and then he left. And then head coach Dave Aranda came in, gave them one magical season of greatness, and since then, losing season, and last year, a 3-9 record, where this team looked bad, and with the opening of the transfer portal, had seen a mass exodus of a lot of their talented players. Their worst recruiting class in over a decade, and now, suddenly, the basement dwellers of the Big 12 were heading back to the basement that had been their home for so long. But I'm not gonna let that happen. This team had come too far in the past decade to get pushed back down into irrelevancy. Once upon a time, this team was one spot away from making the first ever college football playoffs. This team had come so close on so many occasions to getting into that spot, but one slip up after another and one heartbreak after another had led us to fall short of our goals of making the playoffs. We are gonna rise, and we are gonna rise higher than we ever have before. Welcome to the Baylor Bears Dynasty here in College Football 25. I hope you guys like the intro I put together, as I'm so excited for this dynasty. I know the overall says they're an 84. I'll just sit up earlier and say they're not. They only have one player on the entire roster that's 84 or better. And it's like a visual thing, I'm pretty sure, but when you go into like the play now, they have like a 78 offense and a 76 defense, I'm pretty sure. They are significantly worse than what that overall says, so just ignore that when it says 84. They're not that good. So head coach Dave Aranda has been let go after a couple of poor seasons. He was sitting on one of the hottest seats in all of college football to begin with. In his place will be Fred Mathis, a former Northern Illinois quarterback who is going to be having his pipeline in Louisiana, where he is from. Don't pay attention too much to the playbook I picked out on offense, because I'm going to be creating my own and trying to have that thing good to go for when we are going to be getting into the games. And one thing I really wanted to do was restore the classic conferences. I don't want to do none of this super conference Pac-2 stuff, and it's a little silly. I'm not much of an old head traditionalist type of guy, but have the conferences how they should be. I don't want none of this super conference stuff. So I preserved the rivalries, restored the conferences mostly to what they were previously with the divisions and everything. And I didn't know what other content creators were going to do when it comes to this, and this is not going to be like some 1-2 episode rebuild where I just simulate into the future and everything and try to win a championship as soon as possible. This is a realistic series. This is a team in Baylor that has only ever recruited successfully 2 5-star players. Neither of them turned out to be all that great. This is not going to be me just trying to target all the top players in the nation immediately, and we're going to turn this thing around and win a championship in the next season. It's going to be a while. We're going to be here for a long time, having a lot of seasons, getting to see players' careers go through from freshmen all the way to their graduation. I'm really excited for this, and as long as you guys support this, like it, like genuinely, I will make it a lot. I will make a lot of episodes. I will be here. It's just dependent on the support, and all feedback is much appreciated. All support is much appreciated. All likes and everything so much appreciated, as I really want to be one of those guys you go to for Dynasty content. Genuinely, any comments you have, what you like to see in Dynasty, what you don't like to see, formats, suggestions, anything is super appreciated. So I want this to be very interactive. I want this to be fun. I want this to be investing. I want this to be everything. So, you know, as we get into the conferences and I show you all of them, they all are basically what they were previously, except for the Big 12, which is what we will be playing in. I wanted a clean 12-team conference, so I decided to add in an old school like SMU, who's never gotten to be in the Big 12, and a new up-and-coming school in UTSA. So we have a clean 12 teams in the conference. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and you can let me know also if you would prefer it to be kind of a free-for-all, or you want me to put divisions and implement those into seasons 2 and beyond. So that's another thing of feedback that you can give me. Let me know what you're thinking, and I hope you all kind of like this restoring of the old conferences, restoring of the old rivalries, and not just doing the super conference stuff. But let's get into this roster, what I like about it, and why I chose Baylor, as we start with the quarterback position, where it will be senior quarterback transferring in from Toledo, Daquan Finn. He is a fifth-year senior. He has started 3 seasons, coming over from Toledo, and after this team has lost quarterbacks in the past, Kyron Drones over at Virginia Tech, Blake Shapen, now the quarterback at Mississippi State. This team has lost some quarterbacks, and they will be having a senior come in to fill in for a season. But beyond that, Brayson McHenry or Nate Bennett could be the starters. I don't think that that's really what you're hoping for long term. This is a team that's going to need to recruit a quarterback, and we're going to be aggressively pursuing that position. And this is going to be a theme with this team as we go to the running back position. Senior Dominic Richardson will be the starter this year. That's another senior, as he is going to be a perfectly fine player to have for this season. But as we look ahead to what the rest of the roster is going to look like, we'll have a junior coming back for his senior season next year. The only real guy who's going to be giving us a whole lot of opportunities for the future, that would be Dawson Pendergrass, who's a sophomore, but again, another senior starter. Receiver is where things get a little bit more obnoxious. Monterey Baldwin, the absolute speedster, is going to be our #1 guy. He is a senior. He is a very dynamic player with the ball in his hands, but he is all speed. So he'll be a fun player to use for this year, but what about the rest of the receiving core? Surely we have options for the future. Well, no, our top 5 receivers are all seniors, including guys like Hal Presley and a guy who might have been a UTSA Roadrunner in another universe, and Keytron Jackson. But this is a team that's going to have a lot of opportunities to recruit receivers. That's a lot more seniors to go over. So you're kind of starting to see maybe what some of the interest is in this team that has a senior quarterback, a senior running back, a bunch of senior receivers. Kelsey Johnson and Michael Trink, though, they make up a nice tight end duo who is going to be juniors, so we at least have that to bank on for next year. Our best offensive lineman, and the offensive line overall, is rather young relative to the rest of our roster. Alvin Ebiselli is going to be our tackle, and he is a sophomore. One thing, though, I am worried about with these offensive linemen, and just any good young player we have, is there's always risk of transferring. This team has lost a number of players to transfers already. It's a thin offensive line, but it's a lot younger, and it's at least a position that has some foundational pieces that we can look to beyond the first year of the Dynasty. So with us graduating only 1 starter this year, we're going to have 4 returning guys on the O-line next year. Now, when we move on to the defensive side of the football, a lot less star-studded, but we have 2 key players to look for, and that is the high-motor defensive tackle Cooper Lands, who's going to be the leader on the interior, a run-stopping guy who is just all energy, all power, and he's going to be a decent player since he is a junior for this team. At an 82 overall, he will be back, presumably, for his senior season if he decides to stick around. And the defensive line, aside from him, not so much excitement, as it's a lot more younger, a lot more underclassmen, but no one who really should be a starter at this point. So when you're surrounding Cooper Lands with not really a whole lot else. It's going to be a little bit difficult in this first season, but at least both the offensive and defensive line are going to be returning a lot of players and give us some foundational pieces to build on, because for as obnoxious as the receiving room is with its seniors, the linebacking core is just as dire, as when we look at all of our outside and inside linebackers, you see 2 seniors on the left side, and overall, we're going to have, I believe, 5 of our top 6 linebackers graduating. It's a lot of players graduating for this team, but we at least have 1 star player to rely on this season, and hopefully in seasons beyond. That'll be sophomore Caden Jenkins. He is an 84 overall. He is the highest rated player on this team as a sophomore. He came on strong as a freshman, and for as excited as I am for him to be on this team, I'm also terrified. What happens if this team goes out here and wins 3 games again, or wins 4 games? This dude will be good enough as a junior to go and be on a contending team and be a starting viable corner. Who's to say he won't want to transfer? Who's to say he won't want to be somewhere else? And if that's the case, that's our best player walking out the door, because the rest of our group isn't that great outside of him. He is our sole star player, our sole building block for this team going in the future, and I don't know if he is going to stick around, because why would he want to stick around if opportunities present themselves in other places? So that's who's on the team, and those are the priority players and everyone that you need to keep an eye on. But the question I think now is why? Why Baylor? Why a 3.5-star program that's in the Big 12 and also in Texas, which is a good pipeline? Well, at the start of the video, I told you some of the problems that they have had and some of the issues that have gone down with this team. And you could just take a look at their records versus rivals, and you can see that historically they have been bad. And they have had a couple of good years in the 2010s, but they are threatening to fall down. And I will say, selfishly, Baylor's my favorite college football team. RG3 over a decade ago made me fall in love with this team, and I stuck with them ever since. It's not really fun for me to kind of root for the best teams in the nation. I like rooting for the underdog a little bit, and Baylor's always just kind of been that underdog school, and I thought, well, why not in my first dynasty go out there and take my favorite team on, and take my favorite team on when they are in dire need of help. So, selfishly, yeah, Baylor's my favorite team, but I think there's a lot of reasons to want to build this team, because they are graduating over a dozen senior starters on this team. It's going to be a lot of roster turnover. This is also the weakest they have been in a long time. They just came off their worst recruiting class in a long time. And also, I just wanted to do something different. A lot of people are going to be going after these 1-star schools, or the new schools, the Kennesaw States, the Sam Houstons, and the James Madisons, and I understand that that's going to be a lot of fun. The team builder is going to be fun. All that's going to be fun, but you don't want to always just see people go after the 1-star schools. Let's go after a middle-of-the-pack school. Baylor's been very middle of the pack for so long in the past decade now, as their record in their last 100, 49-51, their recruiting classes generally been about 30s, 40s, 50s. They're just a fine school, but they can be a lot more. They can be a lot of fun. They can be really exciting. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something out there, and I'd be shocked if another person did Baylor. Hey, maybe this could really look stupid and some big creator goes out there and has a Baylor dynasty, but I think Baylor's going to be just where I can fit in and do my own dynasty with my own unique team. Let's take a look at the schedule, and I think we got a fun one put together, as with the conference being back with Texas and Oklahoma and everything. We're going to have those guys here. We have UTSA on the road to start in a conference game. Really intriguing there. The non-conference games, I wanted to put fun opponents and fun players, so Amarian Hampton in North Carolina, my favorite running back in the nation, Ashton Janty at Boise State. I wanted to get a ranked opponent on there, and how about one of the best receivers in the nation in McMillan with Noah Fafita throwing him the football. And then our final non-conference game will be taking on one of my favorite receivers in the nation, and Jalen Royals at Utah State. So I think a fun group of players we will be going up against this year. Now let's go over to recruiting, where we have the preseason scouting and offering scholarships, and I at least want to just show you this guy who is spectacular, Josh Beckett, a strong-armed, super fast player. He could be a lot of fun to get. He's a 4-star athlete. But overall, this Baylor team, I'm going to try to keep it pretty realistic to what this team is able to acquire. Generally, this team doesn't acquire super high-end talent. They have just 2 5-stars in their program history, both of them being wide receivers a while ago, and generally they bring in anywhere from 2 to 5 4-star prospects. So I have, I think, 7, 8, 9 of them on the board. Obviously, we're not going to get all of them. That's unrealistic to believe that we're going to get all of our top prospects. But if we can go and snag 4 or 5 of them, that'd be pretty in line with what Baylor is able to do typically. But a lot of this board will be mostly filled out with 3-star prospects, and we're going to try to just figure out who's worth going after and who is going to be off the board, as a couple of guys were busts. So I'll just talk over this and show you all of the scouting and the results and everything. I plan to show you guys everything that I can. I want to do better when it comes to building out the rest of the universe, as there's more than just Baylor. There's 130 plus teams. There's a lot of stories. Who snubbed us in recruiting, who the top prospects go to, who's fighting for national championships, conference championships, who's leading in Heisman, who's doing everything. I want to keep you guys updated with not just our little team bubble that we're going to be in, but everywhere and everyone. So I want to get better at that and show you guys everything that there is to see. And when it comes to the recruiting, while there's not a whole lot to show right now because it's just scouting and scholarships, it's going to be a heavy focus throughout the year, as we are going to be spending a whole portion of each video on the recruiting and how all the prospects are going, and not just, again, for our team, but for around the nation. Like I said before, any support is super appreciated for this series, and the more support and the more views, the more likes it gets, I will continue to pump this out, because I have at least one advantage over these content creators, and that's just that I'm not going to wait for slider sets and everything for these proper dynasties. A lot of people right now are just kind of doing their sim dynasties and their can we rebuild this school to go to a national championship in this many years, and you know, those videos are fun, but you want to get into the real stuff where we're doing multi-year things, where we're playing the games and everything. And I understand why people would want to wait for sliders. It's a game that we have to get used to. There's a lot of new things to learn, and I've played for a little while now. I've gotten a hang of some of the recruiting, gotten a hang of some of the gameplay, and I will be tweaking the sliders. I will be playing on Heisman. I'll be trying to make it as realistic as I possibly can, but this first season's going to be a learning experience, not just for me, but for all of us as we continue to learn the new mechanics of this game. But I wanted to go and get something out quickly and get a series out fast, so that, you know, at least if you're going to all these big creators, you know, as soon as those big creators drop all those videos, you're going to be flocking to those. So I wanted to use at least one advantage that I might have, and that is that I can just drop the videos before them and, you know, hope that it gets some traction, because I really want myself to be one of those guys you go to for Dynasty. I want to be one of those guys you all go to for these multi-year dynasties where we play all these games. There's a lot of guys that I watched when I was growing up in the old NCAAs and revamped, and I want to be one of those guys because I love this game. I love college football. I love the system, and I love the dynasty aspect. I love all of it. So as long as I can make you guys happy, keep you guys entertained, make you guys keep clicking on these videos, I'll feel happy and that I'm doing my job well. And legitimately, all support, all everything is so appreciated, because this is going to be something that I want to do a lot of going forward as I continue to try to grow here on YouTube. So now we advance to week 0, which is basically just a week where it's recruiting for most teams, and we're going to spend our hours accordingly here. I don't have many players that I'm going to just full on send the house for. My strategy when I was recruiting wasn't to just send the house on like 10 different players and utilize all my hours there. I found a handful. There was, I believe, just 3 players that I sent the house for. Josh Beckett is one of them. He is a must-have type of player, but I found about 3, 4, 5 players, I feel like, send the house on those guys. And then elsewhere, just kind of spread the points around, keep your options open, stay in the game for a lot of these players, and keep kind of making your way through their board and getting to those final stages. You know, if you find players that you really want, though, go all in on them. There were 3, like I said, that were there. Here's the second one here in Dobbins. Awesome receiver, seems like such a fun player with a fun skill set. He is a must-have player for me, and I am going all in on him. But I didn't want to just full send, you know, 50 points on like all the best players, because I just feel like you get maybe a little bit more of a top-heavy class. This team is graduating a lot of players. We're not in a situation where we're going for 10 to 15 really nice players, and then the other 20 scholarships either don't get used or don't get filled or whatever. We need a full class. I'm trying to get 30 players, and maybe, some aspects of quantity over quality, because the quality on our board isn't that fast. We have no 5 stars on our board. We have a handful of 4 stars. Here's the other player that I am sending the house on, and that is Durant, who I think is the straight up best player on my board. I think he's an absolute monster. You can take a look at those ratings. He seems like he's going to be just a menace if we get him, and I absolutely am going to be sending it all on him. So yeah, I wanted to just kind of prioritize 3 players and then keep my options open. There's going to be a lot of board movement throughout the season, and this is only week 0. This isn't even officially week 1, so I didn't want to go too crazy. I just wanted to see who might be interested if we give them a couple of points, or, send the feelers out there, test the waters, see what we're looking for. And then as races get more intense, I might send the house on some of these players if I really deem them necessary. But throughout the season, we're going to be adding more and more players to our board. And you can let me know, I guess, what prospects here you're looking at and thinking, man, we need to get this guy. I think Josh Beckett and Durant are the obvious 2, which is our must-get players. But is there anyone else here that maybe catches your eye, thinking that I need to prioritize a little bit more, or some guys that you may want to see on the team? But as you can see here with the final tally with all the points, just 3 players that we are sending the house on for now. And I spent the rest of my points just kind of offering scholarships and kind of filling things out. As the next weeks go on, I'll try to fill my board up, but as of right now, with the recruiting tree that I'm on, I don't have the ability to scout people super quickly in some positions. I think you've seen the running back over there took 50 hours just to scout. So, I got to get that upgraded. It's going to be, a little bit of a work in progress, but one benefit we do have is we're not some bottom barrel school, so we did get a decent amount of hours. But let's move on to the official week 1 of the college football season. As we see our board, we only got locked out of 1 recruit, and it was a quarterback. We're not really too mad about that, but take a look at that. We were excited to have Texas in our conference. No SEC for them, but they go out and they lose to an SEC team. They lost to Kentucky. Interesting to see how the week 0 results don't really impact the week 1 polls that much, but we see a team already go down. USC took a loss, and there's some movement that's going to be happening early on, and it doesn't get a whole lot better for USC as they still have to go and take on Oregon now. But interesting to see that we already have teams going down in our conference, and we'll be seeing Texas not too far away as we'll face them in the first part of the season. But let's move over to the official results, where you get to see everything, and Alabama gets to play a close one. Michigan gets to play a close one. A lot of teams maybe stumbling out the gates here. You expect dominance from those teams, and only 1 and 2 score victories for those guys. We'll see if they can kind of figure things out as they are transitioning. A lot of players going pro for them. The Cy-Hawk Trophy went to Iowa State, and we can see some of these other results. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech played a good one. But let's take a peek at that Texas-Kentucky game, and it was not even close. A 41-point outing from the Kentucky offense, as Quinn Ewers did not play well, and overall it didn't really seem like much of anyone on Texas played well. So we're gonna really see what this Big 12 is going to look like, because Texas has playoff aspirations and playoff expectations. Will this just be a slow start for them, or will they be finding themselves having a down year after what they put out last season going to the playoffs? Heisman race is not going to be too crazy, as not much has happened, but we see all the top names and the usual suspects there, so that'll change throughout the season. And as we wrap things up, we see a Texas player, despite the loss, get themselves a player of the week. But that's basically going to be it for this opening episode, and let me know what you all think, as in the next video, which will be coming out very soon, we'll be taking on UTSA on the road. I wanted to go here and show the matchup screen on the main menu so you could see what our actual overall is. It's not an 84, it's a whole lot lower than that. So Baylor versus UTSA next episode, and I plan on that episode being out within the next 2 days at least. So I really hope you guys all enjoyed this, are excited for the series, and like I said before many times, let me know what you all think. Any like, comment, or subscribe is much appreciated. And as we start off the Baylor Dynasty, I will see you guys all for week 1 on the road in the next one.